Welcome to the video for lesson 5-6, day 1. We're going to talk about solving two-step equations using the distributive property. So we have some steps here that we have to follow to help us to solve these questions. So the first step, if we see any numbers outside the parentheses, we need to expand the expression by using the distributive property. So that was when we multiply the number outside by all the terms inside. Next to here, I want you to write the word area model. That's kind of my secret message because I'm not going to write it. I'm going to ask that you write next to step 1 in this little space right here. I want you to write area model. We need to use an area model, or you could draw the picture of that rectangular box if you wanted, but area model is going to go right next to step 1. After we've used the area model to distribute, you're going to add or subtract the constant, and then we'll multiply or divide in order to get that variable by itself, and finally we'll perform a check. So let's see what these steps look like with an example. My first question here is to solve and check the following equation. 3, and then in parentheses I have the x minus 6. So this 3 needs to be multiplied by the x, and it needs to be multiplied by the minus 6. Equals, so it's not quite an equation because it's missing a piece. Next to that equal sign, I want you to put in the number 24. Okay, so the first step here, we needed to see if there's a number outside of the parentheses. There's this 3 outside of the parentheses. So then I'm going to need to use the distributive property. In order to do that, I'm going to show the area model. Okay, so I've drawn my area model off to the side. I just like to put it off to the side because it's my work to show the distribution. What we're doing with the distribution is we're multiplying 3 times the x. So in order to show this, I'm going to put the 3 on the side. That's what we do for the 3. And then times the x minus 6, so x minus 6 is going to go on the top. And now we're going to multiply. So 3 times x gives me 3x. And then the 3 on the side times the negative 6 on the top. 3 times negative 6 gives me negative 18. Okay, so that's how we show the distribution. But now I need to rewrite that underneath where I multiplied the 3 times the x minus 6. So now that can be rewritten as the 3x minus 18 equals 24. So that's step 1. Now we have an equation. I'm going to draw the line right down the middle to show that now I'm going to go ahead and solve for the x. So what's happening to the x is being multiplied by 3, and we're subtracting 18. So as my steps say, I'm going to add or subtract the constant. I have a negative 18 here, so in order to undo the negative 18, I need to add the 18. So in this step where I add the 18, negative 18 plus 18 is 0. That's why we put a line there to say that that really is canceling because it's 0. Negative 18 plus 18 is 0. So on the left side, I'm left with the 3x, and then 24 plus 18 gives me 42. Now I need to look, my next step says I need to multiply or divide to get the variable by itself. So I'm always going back to what's happening to this variable. Well, now 3x means 3 times x. So the variable is being multiplied by x. So in order to get it by the 3. So in order to get that by itself, I need to do the opposite. So the opposite of multiply by 3 would be to divide by 3. Okay, so I'm dividing by the 3. So anything divided by itself is 1. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. That cancels out. So then I'm left with x on the left side. And then on the right side, 42 divided by 3 gives me 14. So my answer is x equals 14. Now, I have to check to make sure that I did my math correctly. So to check, remember we start by writing the equation just like it was in the question. So I have the 3 times x minus 6 equals 24. Now I want to see if my answer works as a check. So I'm going to plug in my answer in place of x. Now I always use parentheses when I sub in, so you'll see the parentheses around the 14. So I want to see, does this work out? 3 and then in parentheses, and then I subbed in the 14 minus 6, does it equal 24? So order of operations would tell me to do the parentheses first, or we can put this right into our calculator to do the check. So make sure if you're putting it in your calculator, you end up putting it in exactly the way you're looking at it with the parentheses and everything. 14 minus 6 is 8. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 equals 24, so this checks. And then remember to give yourself a little smiley face there. Okay, let's try another example. Okay, so our next example says that we have 4, and then in parentheses, the negative 4x plus 1 equals, and we have a blank there, so I need you to fill that in with 36. So I know I'm solving an equation. I'm going to start by drawing the line down the middle. My step 1 is to see if we have parentheses, and we do. I see the parentheses 4 times the negative 4x plus 1. So that means that I need to start by drawing an area model to help me with the distribution. So I'm going to bring up an area model. So remember to fill in the area model, we're going to put the number on the outside of the parentheses on the side. There's one term there, the 4, that's going to go on the side. And then we have the negative 4x plus 1, that's going to go on the top. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're distributing. So the 4 times the negative 4 times negative 4x gives me negative 16x, and 4 times 1 gives me a positive 4. So then I can rewrite my equation, and instead of having the parentheses, I can replace it with what's in my area model. Negative 16x plus 4. Then I still have the equals 36 for the other side. So now I need to think what's happening to x. X is being multiplied by the negative 16, and then we're adding 4. So we're going to do the opposite in the opposite order. So as our instructions tell us, we're going to add or subtract the constant. So because it's the positive 4, the opposite to undo it, the opposite of adding 4 is subtracting 4. So minus 4 goes on each side of the equation. 4 minus 4 is 0, so that cancels. So you can write that down with a line crossing those two out, and then we're left with the negative 16x on the left side, and 36 minus 4 is 32. And then to get the x by itself, we're now connected with multiplication to the negative 16. The opposite of multiplying by the negative 16, as our instructions tell us, is to either look at multiplying or dividing. We're going to do the opposite of multiplying by negative 16x, since the x is being multiplied by negative 16. To undo that, or get x by itself, we're going to divide by the negative 16. So again, anything divided by itself is 1. So we have this negative 16 divided by negative 16. That ends up canceling. So then on the left side, I'm left with x. And then on the right side, we have 32 divided by negative 16. 32 divided by negative 16 is negative 2. So my answer here is x equals negative 2. So you can put a circle around that, and then we need to check. So to check, remember we need to bring over our original equation. So I brought over the 4 parentheses negative 4x plus 1 equals 36. Now we want to take our answer, the x equals negative 2, and sub it in place of x. Remember, always use parentheses when we're subbing in. So I subbed in using my parentheses 4, and then in parentheses negative 4. Again, inside of those parentheses to show the subbing in, negative 2, close your parentheses, plus 1, and then close our original parentheses. Now the question is, does that equal 36? I can then put it into my calculator, again remembering to use your parentheses everywhere you see parentheses, and I do end up with 36. So then I'm happy and I can say 36 does equal 36. So my check worked, and I can bring down my smiley face. So a little smiley face shows us that we did indeed check, and we made sure that it did work out. Okay, next question, number 3. We have the 1/2 times 8x minus 16. Now don't worry about the 1/2. It's just a fraction, but we're going to use our calculator to help us with that. So I do see the equal sign, and we need to fill in this with an answer. So what I want you to write there is 12. And that's just the rest of the equation. So the equation that's given to us is 1/2, and then in parentheses 8x minus 16, and then equals 12. So to do this, we're going to need an area model. That's step 1, because I need to distribute. So I'm going to bring an area model, and I always just do that off to the side, and then I'm going to put my 1/2 on the side. And then on the top of my area model, I have the 8x, which is the first term, and then it's a negative 16 as my second term. So now to fill in the area model, we're going to do 1/2 times 8x. So 1/2 times 8 gives me 4. And then no other x's to add, so just 4x. 1/2 times negative 16 gives me negative 8. So now that I filled in my area model, we can go back over to the equation. Because it's an equation we're looking to solve, we're going to draw our line down the middle. And because I did the distribution with my area model, I'm just going to be able to put what's in the box in my next line. So 4x minus 8. is on the left side because I did the distribution, and it equals 12. So now we're looking to see what happened to x and do the opposite. So x is being multiplied by 4 and subtracting 8. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 8 to both sides because the opposite of having this minus 8 is to add 8. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And then we have negative 8 plus 8. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0, so I'm left with 4x on the left side. And 12 plus 8 gives me 20. Okay, then the 4 is connected with multiplication, 4 times x, so the opposite of multiplying by 4 is to divide by 4. Okay, so remember to show your division by just having that little line. You don't want to go all the way across, because all the way across means equal. And now I can say 4 divided by 4, anything divided by itself is 1, so 4 divided by 4 cancels. 4 divided by 4 is 1, just meaning there's one x. So if I just put x, that's the same thing. So that's how we got x by itself. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so x equals 5 is my answer. And we put a circle around that. Okay, so now the check, to do the check, I need to bring over my original equation first. So my original is 1/2, and then in parentheses 8x minus 16. Now we're going to take our answer and plug it in for x. Okay, so then I sub that in, and remember, we're not sure if this is true, so you can add the little question mark above the equal sign. So I'm asking, does 1/2 of, and then in parentheses 8 times 5 minus 16 really equal 12? So if we put that in our calculator, we end up with 12 does equal 12, and so that checks. So I can bring down my smiley face. Now remember, always do put this in your calculator. You don't want to just assume that it is going to work out. You want to actually put it in. Otherwise, the check is not very helpful. You want to make sure it does indeed equal what we wanted it to. If it doesn't, we need to look back at our work and see if we missed something. Okay, one more example together. We have negative 2 and then the x minus 3 equals, you're going to fill that in with negative 18. That's the rest of the equation. Okay, so for the equation I'm solving, I'm going to draw a line down the middle. And then step 1, I do see that I have parentheses here. I have a negative 2 times, I can squeeze in a 1 there. 1x minus 3, so I'm going to fill that into my area model. So the negative 2 on the side, 1x minus 3 at the top. Fill in the area model by multiplying. Negative 2 times 1x, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, and then just the x. And then for the side, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. So now that I've done the distribution, I can replace on the left side my original with the negative 2x plus 6, the answer that I got inside of the box, and then equals, and I still have the negative 18 on the right side. So what's happening to x? Multiplying by a negative 2, that's what the negative 2 right next to it means, and then I would add 6, following order of operations. Multiply, and then I would add. So we're going to do the opposite in the opposite order. So the opposite of adding 6 would be to subtract 6 from both sides. In order to keep that equal, we needed to do that to both sides. So then the 6 minus 6 will cancel. 6 minus 6 is 0, so I can cross that out. And then we can do negative 18 minus 6 in our calculator. And we end up with negative 24. So then the negative 2 is still connected to the x with multiplication. The opposite of that would be to divide. So then on the left side, negative 2x divided by negative 2, anything divided by itself is 1. So negative 2 divided by negative 2 will cancel, and I'll be left with my x. And then negative 24 divided by negative 2 is a positive 12. So my answer here is x equals 12. So you're going to put a circle around that, and I'm going to leave the check for you to try on your own, and we'll check that tomorrow. Okay, have a wonderful night. See you tomorrow.